Hi, I'm Angie Aspinall and I'm from Access Solutions, and I'm going to give you an insight into my disability and what it's like staying in a hotel. When I was 30 years old, I was diagnosed with a progressive condition called otosclerosis. It causes progressive hearing loss. At that time, I was only diagnosed as having it in one ear, and instead of having a hearing aid, I went to college for 2 years and I learned to lip read. And I managed pretty well with some coping strategies and the lip reading until the condition also started to affect my left ear. I started wearing hearing aids when I was about 32, 33, and everything was fine. I was holding down my job, getting on okay. But then in 2011, I woke up one day with a really bad headache and I felt quite dizzy, like I was going to faint. And what happened was I went to work and I was taking a phone call from somebody at work and their voice just faded away on the phone. And I lost the hearing in my better ear in the space of 2 hours. It just disappeared, and by the time I'd got to the hospital, I was sitting in the accident emergency waiting room and the very last of my hearing just disappeared from me. Obviously it was terrifying because I've got so little hearing in my other ear and I didn't have my hearing aid with me for that ear, that I was left being unable to hear anything at all, and they didn't do anything for me at the hospital. They just said, oh, you've got an ear infection. And I knew it was something more serious, but what I didn't know at the time was that it was going to be something that was permanent. When you become disabled as an adult, there's a lot to adjust to. There's the emotional aspect of having a disability, but there's also getting used to all the technology in my case. And you have a very steep learning curve about all the different gadgets and different things that might be there to help you. In my case, when I went to the hospital, they started talking about a cochlear implant, which at the time I thought was quite a scary thing. I didn't really have very much information about it. And I did some research for myself and I found a different type of hearing aid that's called a cross. It's a little hearing aid that has a microphone on the side of my dead ear and it sends a signal to a normal hearing aid in the other side, which gives me a sense of left and right. So it's absolutely magical. It's like a little miracle, and it means that I can communicate with people more readily, because becoming deafened as an adult, I'd never learned sign language. So I need to rely on being able to understand people who are speaking to me. When they give you the hearing aid, either at the hospital or the private dispensers, wherever you might be, what doesn't happen is you don't then get taken into another room and shown what all the auxiliary aids are that are available to you. So whether or not you choose to find out about them is left to the individual. And there are a lot of different devices out there, some that only work with certain brands of hearing aids, some that are universal. And as I say, a very steep learning curve to find out what's available. Now, if you have severe to profound hearing loss, you might be eligible for help from your local social services department. And what I received from my social services department was a flashing doorbell that would alert me when somebody came to the front door. And also they sent a retired fireman round who came to fit new smoke alarms all the way through our house and connected them to a device that flashes and has a vibrating pad for at home under the pillow, so that when I've taken my hearing aids out, because you don't go to sleep in your hearing aids, when you're asleep you're not going to hear the fire alarm, and so this wakes you up. Which is all well and good when you're at home, because there's a fixed piece of equipment. But it wasn't until I met some other people who were deafened that I found out that hotels and guest houses and self-catering accommodation are legally obliged to actually provide something similar, so that you've got some device to wake you up in case of a fire when you stay away from home. And one of the products is called a Deaf Guard, which we've got here, and it has a pad that attaches under your pillow, just slips under your pillow and vibrates if the alarm goes off, and a light that flashes to let you know. So some people prefer to use both, some one or the other, totally optional. Now, a lot of hotels don't actually have this equipment, even though it's covered by both fire safety and the Equality Act 2010, but often it's not actually available. I'm fortunate, I'm actually on the waiting list for a hearing dog from Hearing Dogs for Deaf People. Now, when I get my hearing dog, I know that one of the many fantastic things that a hearing dog will do for me is to alert me in the case of a fire. And they're trained to wake you up if you're asleep and actually let you know. They signal, they drop to the floor and they signal that there's danger. For everybody who doesn't have a hearing dog, the devices are, the safety device that you're relying on. But even when hotels have got the devices, what I'm finding is that they don't always advertise that fact. So trying to find out in advance to book a hotel to go to can be quite difficult. Another aspect is that very often you don't find out they've got the equipment until you've arrived at the hotel. I had an experience where I went to London with a colleague and I tried to find out about this equipment, couldn't find anything online, so I just booked 2 what they call disabled rooms rather than accessible rooms. Strange, but there you go. And when I turned up at reception to check in, I said, and does this room have a flashing or vibrating light? And I was told, oh, the devices are portable. You could have booked any room that you wanted. You didn't need to book the wheelchair accessible room. But the hotel's fully booked, so I can't move you to a different room. But you'll know for next time. And he said, we've got 7 of these, and they can go in any of the rooms in the hotel. And incidentally, the hotel's got 236 rooms, and they've got 7 deaf guards. He said that he'd bring it up to the room. He said, I'll go and get one out of the cupboard, and I'll bring it up to you. So I explained to him that I would have to leave the hotel door open because I wouldn't hear him knocking on the door because I'm deaf. So I said, I'll leave the door ajar, come up. It was a little bit frustrating because I actually wanted to get showered and changed to be ready to go out for dinner, but I had to wait for him to come up. He brought the device, it didn't have any batteries in, he had to go away, I had to leave the door open, wait for him to come back, and by that time, more than half an hour had passed. But he set it up and he got it working, and he set the one up for my colleague in the next room, and that was all good. The next time I needed to go to London, I thought, well, I know that hotel has this equipment. I'll book a room, I'll book the device, and I'll know that I'll actually be sorted. So I went online to reserve my room. Fine, did the booking. No reference whatsoever to the equipment or how to book it or a telephone number of the hotel because it was a large chain. So I went onto Twitter, good old Twitter, and I tweeted their customer service person and said, please could you tell me how do I book a deaf guard for this particular hotel? I've booked my room and I need to get it. And we had this long, protracted, drawn-out thing where I had to follow them on Twitter, they had to follow me, send me a private message, I had to send them the booking reference. They had presumably rang the hotel, attached my request to my booking reference, and then sent me a private message back and then unfollowed my account. So I turned up at the hotel, no deaf guard in the room. So I went down to reception and they said, oh, most people ask for them on arrival. It's like, okay, you've got 7. What if I'm the 8th person that arrives at your hotel? Now, the girl thought that was a rhetorical question, but no, actually, I was asking it as a serious question. What would happen if I was the 8th person? Who was going to come and save my life on the 4th floor because they've not got enough equipment? They didn't answer that question. Anyway, they went and got me a deaf guard. I had to carry it through the hotel myself, which was equivalent to me of, carrying a flashing light on my head saying, hello, single lady traveller, deaf person, going to room. And it was a hotel where you needed a card to get through to the lift and then a card to get through to the corridor. And a man sort of snuck in behind me who didn't have a card, and I felt a little bit nervous because he was following me or just happening to go down the corridor at the same time. And it was quite dark, and I got to my room, and the key card bit to put the light was behind the door, and it was not a very comfortable moment to be actually going in with all the kit that I'd got, thinking, this man, I don't even know if he's staying at the hotel. So it wasn't very pleasant. It's much nicer when you check into a hotel and somebody says, would you like to register? And then I'll show you to your room. And then you think, oh, that's great. I don't have to try to listen to what floor. Is it 4th floor? Is it 1st floor? If somebody says, we'll show you to your room, you can immediately relax and know that you're going to get to your room okay. So I get to my room and I notice that there is a chance to have pizza in your room rather than eat in a noisy restaurant. I thought that would be quite nice. And it said you could ring room service. But I looked at the telephone and they didn't have any speakerphone option or amplified phone. So I wasn't able to make the telephone call. So I went down to the bar to order the pizza and explained that I'd come down to find out if I could order some food. And I explained that I hadn't been able to phone. And the girl said, we'll ring you when your pizza's ready. It's like, well, you can ring and I can hear that the phone's ringing, but I won't answer it because I won't be able to speak to the person on the other end. Anyway, I got my pizza. I thought I'll put television on. And there was a lovely welcoming sign that said, for the benefit of guests who are hard of hearing, all our televisions have subtitles. Please press the subtitle button on your remote control. Fantastic. They've got one thing ready for me. My remote control didn't have a subtitle button on it. And this is not unusual. This is par for the course, really. And it's not just about, having the equipment there and that kind of thing. It's about knowing in advance. It's about what's on an access statement so that you know what to expect. It's about the fact that somebody at the hotel has thought through what somebody might need. And so, bearing all this in mind, I found that it's really difficult to know where to look to stay. And so we've set up a website called Hearing Loss Friendly so that we'll be able to add to it places that offer excellence in customer service and the equipment and the thoughtful touches that make somewhere a nice place to stay. Another aspect of staying at a hotel is around conferences and meetings. And in terms of equipment, you might be asked if you provide a hearing loop. Now, the thing with hearing loops is there's different sorts of hearing loops. And often in a large conference venue, good practice is to have what's called a fixed hearing loop, which would be around the perimeter of the room. And they're fantastic. And what they do is allow the sound from a microphone like this to go straight into somebody's hearing aid without any background noise, and it overcomes the problem of distance, because obviously your microphone is on your hearing aid, so the further away somebody is from you with your hearing aid, the harder it is to hear them. Now, sometimes when we go to places, we get offered these that people call portable loops. Now, it has got a handle, so I suppose in that regard it is portable, but this is actually a countertop loop, and it only has a distance of 1.5 metres, which means that the person speaking and the person listening need to only be 1.5 metres away. So they're not really suitable for use in a meeting room. They don't serve the same purpose as a fixed room loop. So we're on a mission to find out places that are hearing loss friendly, that have got the equipment that we need, that we can find out by a Google search that that equipment's there and that we can book it in advance and know that our needs will be met. Thank you.